You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Fonte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
Отдача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Bisantz shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. He ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on SouthamptonDelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoyed your weekend, even though it was a weekend without any Saints FC matches to enjoy. Maybe you watched the FA Cup final. Maybe you thought back to 1976. I didn't because I wasn't alive then, but I did read the Bobby Stokes book and I have watched the match. And if you haven't done either of those things, maybe that's something that you could do between now and the time we start matches again in September. But we have some time between now and then. And one of the things we're going to do is talk to a number of fans, both of the club and of the show, about their thoughts on last season and what needs to happen in the transfer window to make sure that next season is successful. So this week you'll hear from Luke Millard, Justin Woodward, Graham Copp, and Tim Bisantz. There will be 4 or 5 more interviews next week of a similar manner. Most of those have been conducted already. Some will be conducted later this week. But if you didn't get a chance to speak to me for this and you want to contribute, I am also including some thoughts from readers and listeners in this week's newsletter, so you can submit your thoughts on the season, and I'll include them in the newsletter. The link is in the show notes, so go ahead and head there. And I will say that in order to attend to some family business, I had to actually postpone a couple of the interviews, and I had to record a couple of them in the car. So Graham and Tim, I talked to them fairly early in the morning, my time here on the west coast of the United States, and it was pre-coffee and was also in the car. So hopefully it sounds okay. They sound great. It's just the fact that it was very early in the morning and I hadn't had any coffee yet. And also the fact that I was inside of a car. But anyway, enjoy the show. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're having a good day, and we'll talk to you on the other side. So we'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Luke Millard. He's on Instagram at Millard505. Luke, you're one of the patrons of the show. So first off, thank you for that. And welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks. It's great. It's great to be back on.
Yeah. So, I mean, the season's over. We've kind of wrapped up the last game and we talked about, hopefully at this point, we're talking on Tuesday, just after the last episode was released. So Salisu still has not been announced. But we're just here to kind of reflect on the season and talk about kind of some of those things that really stood out. So, we could go through player of the season and all that stuff, but that's kind of been done by everybody. But I just want to ask you, like, what moments or players will really stand out or stood out to you over the course of this season?
Yeah, so I had to sort of go back and look at the season's fixtures to realise what had happened so early on. It's been such a long season, I have to jog my memory, really. Because what a long and wild season. And the first game of the season was such a bad start to the season. Didn't really know where it was going to go. But the one memory I have from starting the season was going to Burnley away, which is an awful long car journey, and getting ridiculously wet. The heavens opened on us and losing 3-0. I sort of wondered what we'd be in for, really. But then I think standout moments for me probably, like when I was on last time, I spoke about the Pompey away game at Fratton Park. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that can quite explain what it's like to go to your own neighbour's backyard and beat them as the chance goes, and be walked to the ground by the police, from the stadium to the ground, like moments like that are things that you never forget. So this will probably be the season to remember, to go to Pratton Park, because who knows when it will be next. Maybe when we play them in the under-23 Cup now, as it is the Lincoln Trophy, who knows. But yeah, obviously that was a good sign for the season, although the start of the season didn't go great. A couple of home performances. We had some really bad Friday night matches. Again, getting rained on. I think we had 3 Friday night games that were on the telly that were poor losses. One in particular, everyone knows about. But then the away fixture for me was just such a moment to go into the away end and have all the Leicester fans sort of jeering at us, thinking all these fans have come up here from the South Coast. I thought we did to them last time. I wonder what they're in store for today.
Yeah.
And yeah, to turn that around there, get the result, that moment for me is a massive standout, and it just shows how far we came from that autumn gloom, the sort of dark and dinginess of the back end of the year into the spring and the amazing form that carried on right into the lockdown period. It's been a great 2020 in total, despite the pandemic, of course.
Yeah. Football wise, it's been great. I'd say the world outside of that, the world is burning down, but the football was fantastic. I mean, would Ings be the player that really stood out to you this season, or is there somebody else that you think maybe deserves some recognition as well? Because obviously what Ings did is absolutely incredible. And I'm still sorry he didn't get the Golden Boot, but very, very happy for his performance and how hard he worked. And you think about, he seemed to grow a little bit as well, given, the type of goals he was scoring at the beginning of the season. They just seemed to go off him all the time, everywhere. And then all of a sudden it was, now he's pulling people one way and dragging shots and things like that. So I don't know, super stoked with him. But for you, I guess what other players or if anybody really stood out to you this season?
I mean, yeah, he's got to be, he's got to have a mention, isn't he? I mean, what a season. It's been many years since we've had such a talisman like him. You think back to Lambert and Pella in terms of someone up top, who can deliver, and it's great to have a figure like that in. But I think one player that may not have got the headlines this year as much as I think we owed a lot to our stability into the back end of the season. And I think Stevens has sort of, I say, come out of nowhere. He's always been there, but he was never sort of looked upon as the figure that could lead the defence or be in there next to Bednar. We thought Vestergaard coming in would be the answer. We soon proved wrong, potentially with his performances, and so I think he's got to be given a lot of credit. I went up to the Etihad to see him score a header, and didn't score many that season, but defensively he was a rock and always putting tackles in. I mean, even at the back end of the season, Romeu stepped in for Højbjerg going away. I mean, even in the last game, Romeu put in that brilliant challenge, just as in the memory in the box there.
Yeah.
But Stevens did a lot of that next to Bednar, and so you mentioned about Salisu. It's going to be interesting to see how he slots in, whether he slots in straight away, who goes, who moves away. But hopefully Stevens gets some reward and some benefit for the good season he's had.
Yeah. And you mentioned Salisu there, and thinking about a little bit more about the conversation I had with Zach last week. You think like Stevens might be the better fit to play next to him, just because it seems like Salisu needs somebody there to coach him along, and Stevens is the guy who really organized everything in the back four, which is not something that I don't think many of us thought he could do. Just last season we thought he was not maybe that strong-willed or it didn't really have it in him, but he kind of proved us all wrong. And listen to any of the commentators who really follow Saints, not the guys who are on TV once and never watch us play again, but Carl and everybody else. They mention over and over and over that he's the guy giving direction to everybody on the pitch, which I think he deserves a lot of credit for, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, you could listen during the lockdown to the shouts if you wanted to, and that showed then how much I think he shouted and led the defence. I think Bednar is still young. I mean, we all think, and most Saints fans may still think he's the best centre back we've currently got. But I think you're right in terms of Stevens has got a bit more experience, a bit more age with the leadership he's got. I think more, as your guest said last week, as an elder statesman next to him to give him support. I think if Salisu does come in and play straight away, Stevens is probably the man to put beside him.
Yeah. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. looking forward a little bit, what else do Saints need to do? I mean, going into next season, because I've been really positive about. I would say that this end of the season is the most positive I felt at the end of a season in a number of years. Not that we don't have things to do over the summer to help make sure that we continue to improve. But what do you think Saints need to do going forward to make sure that we kind of stay on this trajectory and keep winning matches the way we're doing it?
I think hopefully the players will go away and do what we did in the start of lockdown to keep the fitness up. I think we were all quite surprised. There were a lot of questions how good we'd come back after a long break, a longer break than we would normally have in the summer. So maybe a lot of it's got to do with keeping the squad fit and healthy because we played so well recently. But I think we should try, if we can, although the market's a volatile place at the moment, no one really knows what's going on with that, especially Saints as a team not having lots of money and potentially other players coming back and getting rid of. A clear out's been needed for a while. So first of all, decide who's staying, who's going. I must admit, I was as a tad annoyed at seeing Elyounoussi renew the loan deal because really you want the player off the books to get money in is the ideal situation. But with COVID, you understand that Celtic probably weren't going to pay up for him.
Right.
So potentially getting rid of what we can in terms of the squad, because again, it's big without loanies if possible. But then I think Romeo was good in the latter half of the season, with lockdown primarily, and the question is whether he can continue to play well there, or whether he's not quite the quality that we want to push on into the top half now. I know 11 was an amazing season, and no one would have guessed we would have started. I think you said you were one place out with your pre-season prediction.
Yeah, it's total luck though.
But if we do want to try and continue a trajectory going up the league, I think quality has to potentially come in, and whether it is the first team, whether someone can partner Prowse and make a big difference, a ball-winning midfielder, that may be someone we look into. But again, I said the market is such a strange place, and if we haven't quite got the finances and we can't get rid of the players to support that, I've always been a bit of an advocate of the leader coming back, which other Saints lads may not be as happy with. But we'll see if he could come back and if he plans the right attitude. But if he doesn't, I trust in Ralph. We trust, and if he doesn't think that he's up to it, then I'm happy for him to go back out wherever he needs to go again.
Well, I can't remember which commentator it was, whether it was Blackmore or Dave Merrington on the Total Saints podcast, that talked about Lamina, and they really felt like Lamina is the player to come back and make us better. I mean, and you'd have to say that, like Adam, I think it was Adam, and he's got to know these guys a little bit better than we do, right? And you just wonder how it would work out. Like if he buys in, I mean, he is fantastic on the ball, but I don't know. I could do without ever seeing him in a Saints shirt again, probably, but that's fine. We'll have to see. I don't know how that's gonna go and how that personality clash goes, and you just wonder a little bit as to how it all works out. But I think I felt the same way about Buffon, and he's come back and has made his way into Ralph's plans a little bit. So I think we'll have to see. I think we have a lot of talent, like in those number 10 positions. People are gonna have to fight for those positions, but I think we're maybe a little bit light in central midfield, especially with Højbjerg, seeming to be leaving. Although if we got rid of Højbjerg and got a little bit of money in KWP, I'd be pretty happy with that, I think. Yeah, that's the real sort of deal that's on the card. I heard today that Tottenham's number one signing, potential signing, the target is Højbjerg. It really would be nice to get some money for him, but knowing how Levy works, and again what the transfer market's like, I think a straight swap would probably satisfy just about all parties, because Walker Peters has come in and he has played well, which is it's weird to think about getting knocked out the side by a loanee, because this time last year you couldn't imagine him not in the side. Right.
A strange falling out, him and Obafemi over Christmas, and then Cedric having quite a decent start to the season, but not good enough, I thought, for an Arsenal move. Yeah, lots of moving pieces, but I think what's come out of it is hopefully Walker Peters to us. Probably we just want to see the back of Højbjerg now. It's that classic move. You don't want to see a player play for you who doesn't want to play for you. And I think that was half the reason not to put him even on the bench on the weekend. You didn't want to see him in that new kit because it looked like he was part of that new team for the new season.
Yeah.
But as you say, with Lamina, with the Buffon situation, the person I was thinking of at the time was Pogba. You look at Man United and how Pogba is identical, but a million times more famous. He's got that personality, that brand, that volatile nature to him. But that quality, like Lamina has, I think St. John's can't deny that. And maybe if under the right guidance, with a bit of help around him, Lamina can come back and prove why he deserves to play. And I think his career will be better off for it. I don't really think he wants to be playing for Fenerbahce. Maybe he has had a good time. I'm not 100%.
Well, I don't think anybody though wants to, like, if your goal is to play at the highest level possible, then that's not it. You know, you want to be playing in the Premier League or maybe in a league in, maybe you want to go to Italy or Spain or somewhere else, but you don't want to be playing in Turkey. That's, I think, seen mostly as a kind of like MLS a little bit. And that's where you go when you can't hack it in the other places. And so, not that I'm sure the fan culture and everything else isn't big, and not that it wouldn't be a lot of fun to play in front of those fans, but I don't think that's where you'd want to be. Luke, I just want to say thanks a lot, man. Like it's always a pleasure to talk to you. We've been talking for a little while, and I want to thank you again for your support of the show via Patreon and just everything you've done just to kind of encourage me throughout the year. And and good luck as you move into teaching. I'm going to out you a little bit, but done with school, into your own flat, going on to teach. So good luck as you're walking into, as a fellow teacher, you're walking into something that is completely, it's going to be crazy and it's going to be hard, but it's going to be great. And you're going to have a huge impact on kids' lives, which is, I think why we all do it. So congratulations on that. And thanks for doing this. Yeah, no, thank you so much. I was going to say that I applaud you for carrying on doing this during the whole of lockdown. I think when we didn't have any football to watch, we were wondering would it come back or would it not. I think you were one of only a small number of people that kept going throughout the whole, and I think it kept us going in a way of thinking about football coming back and wanting it to. At one point, I was happy with none and void to Liverpool not get the title. I probably don't speak aloud of that in that from the State's point of view. But no, thank you so much for keeping it going and continuing throughout the whole. And I think after years of awful football, you've been rewarded. I think eventually you've finally got to a point now where you can talk happily and hopefully with a smile on your face about most of the results you review. There was always a joke a little bit between Ben and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but like we seemed to joke a little bit where it seemed like we started the show and then the team just tanked, and we haven't really had a real positive season to talk about. So it's been really hard to go like, well, now what do we talk about now that we're good, and how do we be happy without being, overly confident, but also not just being super pessimistic. So definitely there were some down times during the lockdown for sure, where I was not, I wasn't sure how things were going to go, but since then it's been great. So thanks for the encouragement all the way through. And I appreciate it. Yeah, no, not a problem. And I'll take your tips into teaching and let you know how I get on. Absolutely. Well, have a wonderful rest of the night, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. You too. Now we'd like to welcome to the show Justin Woodward. You can find him on Twitter at JustinWoody76. Longtime listener, longtime patron. Justin, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Matt. I
have a question about your Twitter account. Is the 76, is that when you were born, or is there another reason?
That's the year I was born. It's a good year. It was a good year. Unfortunately, I don't remember it, but yeah.
I guess your family Saints fans, or are you the first one?
I'm the first one. It's Dad didn't really show an interest in it at all. I mean, he was aware that they won the cup and stuff like that, but he never used to go. It was only since when we started to reconnect as a father and son in my 20s that we used football as a medium to get back in touch and get a relationship again. And he follows them not as avidly as me, but certainly follows them as much as he can now.
Yeah. Well, and if you were, if your parents were big fans, you probably would have been named Bobby or something else.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. And I guess this show, we're just kind of looking back at the season. I've talked to Luke and Kevin at this point. I know the three of you have all met each other at some point, a couple times, I think. which I think is super cool. And so, thanks again for doing that. Just to kind of start, I mean, there's a lot of things to remember this season by, both good and bad, on field, off field. But for you, I guess, what's the standout moment? What's the moment you're like, if somebody asks you about this season, what are you going to tell them first?
It's going to be for me, it's the 2-1 Leicester win, because it was all about showing that result was an anomaly that we had, and we were a good team, and we went there, and yeah, they took the mick out of us with playing the 9 goals beforehand and all that lot, and we just went there and showed them that that's not us. And for me, that put a big smile on my face. As much as the Pompey win was good, certainly living here, it was great, but it was expected that we won that game. Whereas Leicester, we weren't expected to win the away because of the home result, and we went there and we outplayed them, basically. And for me, that's my highlight this season.
Yeah. I think it was probably an emotional kind of or mental barrier maybe for the team too. They needed to get over that to prove to themselves that wasn't us, even though we all knew it and we all knew that shouldn't have been there. It's nice to get that kind of off your back, I guess, as a player.
It is, and I think also going on from that, I think we had a huge hangover from that home defeat that affected our home games. I'd say up to the Man City at home. That Man City result, where we got beat outgoing champions, proved that we could beat the best team, one of the best teams in the league, at home.
Yeah.
And I think from that, going into next season, it's going to be home form will be a bit better.
Yeah, I hope so. Here in the States, we have to disclose whenever if you're selling your home and somebody has passed away in that home, you have to disclose that. And I feel like every single player that walked into St. Mary's had the disclosure, hey, we got beat 9-0 here. You can feel it, you can just, it felt like something, and it's nice to kind of get rid of that, I guess.
It is. And I think it made the players realise that, or made the players better, because you can only get better when you make mistakes. And that was the biggest mistake of all. Nothing worked that day. And as we know, everybody went away and looked at it and still didn't improve for Everton. And then it started, the turning point for me was half-time against Watford. We're 1-0 down, bottom of the league, and we come back to win 2-1. It was an awful game, but we won, and it turned us, for me, that they proved that they could win games and get points. And from that point on, we pretty much didn't look back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way we finished the season, nothing but smiles from me. There were a lot of points in the season though that hasn't happened. And a lot of end of the seasons of recent years where it's just kind of been like relief that we didn't get relegated, or just, oh my gosh, there's so much needs to change. It's nice to have a different outlook, I guess. On it.
I mean, this restart, while it's been awful in one respect, not being able to to be there, the team have just put the smile on Saints fans again. They've performed so much better than any of us expected.
Yeah,
I feel, and they've just almost gone from strength to strength. And you didn't want the season to end because you just wanted the next match to happen. Yeah,
you just keep bringing them because we'll just keep winning.
Yeah.
We'll just keep picking up points, and it's really nice to like see other teams and just go, I don't think anybody wants to play us. I think everybody's glad that the season's over and they don't have to worry about us for a while.
We're a nasty team to play against, but on the flip side of that, we don't play horrible football.
Right.
So we have that nasty side, but play a good, attacking, exciting football, which at the end of the day, that's all you want. You want them to try 100%, and at the moment, it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of kind of giving 100%, were there any players that kind of surprised you this season? I mean, I know Danny Ings scoring a ton of goals. We all love that, but anybody in the squad that kind of just you weren't expecting them to do that, and you could be Ings because he had he struggled with injuries. He didn't really kick on last year the way we would have hoped, and so I guess anybody that stands out to you this season.
Yeah, obviously Ings is a standout. He's scored the goals. He's done brilliantly. But for me, honourable mention to James Ward-Prowse and Armstrong, who have improved. James Ward-Prowse has become the player we knew that he was. For me, Jack Stevens, the amount of slate that guy has had in the last couple of years, and deservedly so, and he's taken it on the chin, and he's come back, and he's not let it get him down, and he's come back and proved that there is a player there, and a very, very good one. So for me, he's the most improved player in the team. Almost to the point where you're not nervous about him being on the team sheet now. You're quite happy with him and Bednarak got the back, and you're not that concerned anymore.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting this off season when we bring in the new center back, how it all kind of shapes up and who's going to fit next time. Because I think for a long time we would have said Bednarak needs a partner, and now all of a sudden it's I'm not so sure. And I just think the leadership that Stevens has brought, I didn't know he had, and it's been a welcome surprise. Yeah,
I mean, at the moment, you'd be hard pushed to drop either of them.
Yeah,
really. So, and I think if this Salisu comes in, which is likely, I don't think we're going to see much of him for the first few months. I think he's going to be the backup. Get a few League Cup games, maybe a few appearances, but nothing major until he gets used to the speed. I hope people aren't expecting too much of him too quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember when Bednarak came in and what the expectation was for him and how long it took for him to really get in. I mean, he was pretty terrible initially, I think, in his first match, and kind of we didn't see him for a while, and he's blossomed and developed, and I think that's what it's going to take. I mean, Salisu's only 20, and he's got one professional season kind of under his belt, like in a top flight league, so it's going to be a steep learning curve for sure. But I think we'll see how it goes. Is there anything else that needs to happen in the transfer window? You see any other issues where where the team, I guess, needs to address?
Well, we all know there's defensive issues all across the back. Let's be honest, we're all hoping Carwell Peters comes in, and I wouldn't be surprised if 2 centre backs come in. The other hole is midfield, where Woodward's likely to leave. What do? You've got Smallbone coming through, who is good in the occasional game. He hasn't got the consistency yet, certainly with the big teams. I think he'll struggle more. Mm-hmm. You've got Reed at Fulham, but I still think the Saints will do what they did with Target and let him go back. Certainly if Fulham get promoted, I think they'll let him go back. So you've got to bring somebody into that midfield, because as good as Romeo's been these last few games, I don't think he's a long-term solution for us.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of aging out of the profile that we want, and he is a card risk, a suspension risk, and you need somebody in there that can fill in. Because I think with him being the backup, coming in and playing well, that's great. But if you're relying on him and don't have anybody that can solidify that position, maybe that's a problem. Obviously, we want to give chances to the younger guys, but we also have to kind of guarantee ourselves that we have a consistent team, because we saw how important that solidified lineup was to us when we played this season. When we were changing constantly.
We've also seen that the first team it's a mid to top table team now, mm-hmm. but the players that are coming in are not good enough quality yet. Mm-hmm. That reserve team, almost that B team side of things, they're not good enough. When they've been called upon, the likes of Valerie, Vestergaard, you vote into one. I think he will be good. He's certainly not ready for regular football. Mm-hmm. Obafemi needs a lot more time. So that B team as such isn't good enough, which Ralph needs to work on, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is there anything else about the season or about the club in general that you'd like to kind of point out before we kind of wrap this part up?
For me, the decision to keep Ralph in the autumn was a huge success. I've got a lot of time for Martin Siemens. I've heard the interviews with him. He seems level-headed. He seems to be running the club well, and to stick with your manager like that, it just shows that there's actually a level-headed person there. Somebody who's not going to react when things start going bad, but look at how to improve things. And, it's just showing that you kind of stick with people sometimes, certainly managers, and they will get the best out of the players. And I think there's so much more to come from Ralph in this team, because he's now confident in where he is.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said, like you said, about sticking with the manager, and then the manager also sticking with some of the players, even if they had initial poor performances. The decision when we could to put Adams back in and give him the opportunity to score, we saw that come good. James Ward-Prowse played every minute of every match, and I'm not saying at any point that he should have been dropped, because he played kind of out of his skin all year, but that willingness to kind of stick with things even after the 9-0 in October. Like, some of those players got dropped. Gunn obviously didn't really make a lot of appearances, but a lot of the other guys stayed around, and I think that shows that Ralph has some belief in the players that we can do it, and I guess it all kind of worked out for us in the end. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can only be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird feeling at the end of the season.
It is, isn't it? I've supported Saints since 1986, and the majority of the season's end, and you're kind of like, thankfully we've survived. This season is like, this is nice. I like this. We get used to this more. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I mean, Justin, it's been a pleasure to chat with you a little bit here. I appreciate your support of the show, and I wish. For people that don't know, you like to go to like music festivals, and you're always at the games, and you travel around and watch football. And we've all had our lives disrupted by this, but I hope that you get back to that stuff soon, because it's just nice to be able to kind of do that and see different bands and countries and of football and everything else. So I hope your family is well, and I hope you're well, and I hope you get back to that stuff sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Graham Copp. You can find him on Instagram at graham.copp.96. You can also find him on Facebook. Graham, it's a pleasure to talk to you again, and welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Matt. It's good to see you and hear your voice again.
Yeah, a little different. I'm recording inside of a car, so hopefully it sounds all right. Weird weekend so far. But so we're just here to kind of recap the season a little bit. And I guess we'll start with, what moment from this season, when you look back, when you tell somebody about the 2019-2020 season, what is it that you're going to be sure to mention first, I guess?
I think it's got to be COVID. I mean, it's had ramifications worldwide, not just in the sporting world, but everywhere. And it's obviously disrupted the Premier League season, including Saints. I'm a bit like you. I get my dose of either weekly or bi-weekly Saints on NBC coverage over here in the States, and I've really been pining for that and missing it. So it's been good, even though now it's back, or it was back. You have to watch without a crowd. It was still, a fix for Saints, which we both appreciate. And it's just a shame. And the Saints, since the comeback or the restart of the season, I don't know for sure, I haven't really looked it up statistically, but I doubt many teams have got more points than them since the play resumed. So, it's a shame the season's come to an end, really. I mean, it's a big if, but if they'd been able to maintain that sort of level of gathering points, they would be sort of chasing top four, I would have thought. Obviously, it was a big if to maintain that sort of form over a whole season.
Yeah.
So I think, anybody looking back on this year, it's got to be the virus, really. That would be how I would remember it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's disruptive. It doesn't even begin to describe it. What about on field? Is there a match or a moment that you would, I guess?
Well, there's a match, obviously, that none of us like to talk about or mention, but all the commentators and pundits love bringing it up. But, often it can be turned into a positive. The fact that they were drubbed 9-0 at home in front of millions on Sky, and yet here we are, 6 months later or so, and we got more points after that match than the team that thrashed us.
Uh-huh.
And we had the pleasure of beating them on their own turf. Not 9-0, admittedly, but we still got the 3 points from them. So every negative can be turned into a positive, and that match obviously would go down in the infamous history of Southampton Football Club, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In a way, it's had a happy ending, especially finishing 11th, and form that they've shown in virtually all the matches apart from the Arsenal game since the restart.
Yeah. No, it was a real pleasure to watch the team post restart. It was the way they went about their business. It was just an enjoyable experience, I would say, except for the Arsenal match and then maybe the first half against Brighton. But it doesn't matter because we we did the job in all the other matches. And you were mentioning the points we took. I think third place in the table, if you just do from the restart, I think only City and United had more points than we did, and we beat one of them and drew with the other. So I think we'll take it. When you look at the team now, I mean, you talk about potentially being able to sustain that for an entire season, which would be difficult, but we can always hope. What areas of the team do you think need to be addressed over the summer or over the break now for us to have a better chance of doing that?
I think it's the back five, definitely. I mean, midfield, even with Woodward moving on. I thought he'd already gone to Everton, but I read something today that it's still up in the air and he's holding on to Spurs. I don't really know what the latest is on that, but bottom line is he's not going to be a Saints player on the floor unless he just sees out his contract. So I think, the goalkeeping situation, I would like to see Forster given another chance. I mean, I know he did well in Scotland. I know it's not the Premier League, but I think on their day, of the three of them, he is the best goalkeeper. If they all played well in the same match, under the same conditions, I know that's not impossible to contrive that, but I just feel like he's the most all-round best goalkeeper we have of the three of them. So I would have him challenging McCarthy for the number one spot and either sell or put Gunn out on loan. That would be my solution.
Okay.
Now, so that's obviously an important position. And then the back four, well documented the issues we've had there for not just this season but several seasons. For instance, we've sort of lost the natural leadership of Virgil and Font and people like that. We haven't really had anybody who's stepped up and just commanded that back four. I think Stevens has done very well and he deserves a special mention for the way he's progressed under Ralph's tutelage. So I think he's worthy of probably a starting place, but he needs to be threatened by someone equally, after his position.
Sure.
And even the same with the others, really. And then you've got the fullback positions, which I think the Tottenham lad, Walker Peters, I think he's really excelled, and I think most of us have been impressed with him, and don't really know what's happened to Valerie, whether it's a mental thing with him or a physical thing. I know he was suffering from illness.
Yeah.
But I guess it'd be good to have the two of them battling for the position. I think Bertrand's pretty good for another season or two. I know he's probably the wrong side of 30 now. At least he's got some experience. But then midfield, even with Holberg, we've got youngsters coming through, and Romeo has really stepped up to the plate. He's the ultimate professional, not getting it in the starting 11 and yet coming on, or even sometimes not coming on and just being totally professional. I think I would shoe him in as a great holding midfielder. And then up front, you've got good choices. You've got the old hands, Shane Long, and then you've got the youngster, with Obafemi. So I think we're in pretty good shape up front. But I think it's that back four that needs to be examined and strengthened. And I don't know what happened to Janso. I'm not even sure if he was a loan or.
No, he's on loan. He's going back.
Okay, well, he's obviously not up to the task because Ralph had plenty of chances to play him and he chose not to in matches that didn't ultimately matter. We were already safe.
Right.
So that would be what I think everyone is in agreement is the back four, back five that we need to look at. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think improvement there gives stability for the rest of the team. And we hopefully will have a new center back coming in soon. Still, as I've seen, I haven't really been on Twitter or checked the news in the past kind of 24 hours, but I haven't. Usually if something that big happens, somebody lets me know, even if I don't want to know. So,
right. I was just pondering, 3 teams got relegated. I'm sure one of those 3 must have a decent centre back that we could poach, put in an offer for a guy who's good enough for the Premier League that would be an improvement on any of ours, or maybe not, or maybe that's why they got relegated. Their back fours were worse than ours. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. We should have a new one coming in. So Lisa should be announced. I think that they're just waiting for the announcement, and I don't know why. Anyway, you mentioned Stevens there, and we all know, Danny Ings had the the season of a lifetime, it seems like. But if there's anybody other than Danny Ings, would it be Jack Stevens, you think, that deserves special recognition for his season? Or...
Yeah, I think if the Player of the Year were like the Olympics and gold, silver, bronze, I'd give Danny obviously the gold, and then it would be a close fight for silver and bronze between Jack Stevens and Ward Prowse.
Okay.
And even maybe fighting on that to get on the podium with the Stuart Armstrong. I mean, when he was given a chance, he really excelled, and he scored goals, he set up goals, he's tenacious, he's fit, he's got flair, he's got a footballer's brain. I think he's a great addition to the squad and the team.
Yeah, he was I would say he was a lot of fun to watch this year, but I think it's been so great because watching Ward Prowse kind of come up and not have a place in the team and not have a best position and kind of find his way all the way from being kind of left out of the team under certain managers to just now being the captain. It's been great to watch him do it, but Armstrong has been fantastic. Stevens was great. I think all three of those or all four of those are totally worthy there. Now, I guess, is there anything else about the season that you feel needs to be mentioned before we kind of wrap this up?
I do. I think the board, often maligned in many football clubs, I think they deserve a special mention, and we should be grateful that they didn't just get rid of Ralph after the aforementioned disaster against Leicester. They had the foresight and the belief in him, and he's reflected that since and been worthy of their support. So I think that the Southampton board deserves a special mention.
Absolutely.
And obviously Ralph himself too, because he was the one who took it on the chin. He accepted responsibility, even though it was not him running around for 90 minutes. It was 11 players that he chose on that given night. So he's worked miracles really, and I think he should be. Obviously they've rewarded him with a extended contract,
right.
And so I think Ralph and the board. Yes, we all love to watch the players, but behind the scenes is pretty important too.
Yeah. No, I was very impressed that we wound up keeping, because I think a lot of clubs, you saw what happened with Watford. They just kept, bringing in new managers and things like that. And I think that instability will cause problems. And, we've even seen it at Southampton that so many managers have had short tenures there in recent years. And it's nice to finally have one where it seems like we have some stability and the ideas are really getting through to the guys and it's showing on the pitch. So I think well done to the board for keeping him. Well done to Ralph for keeping with the players and doing the best that he can with the players that he has. And, the results are starting to go in our favor, I think.
Exactly. I totally agree.
All right. Well, Graham, it's been a pleasure to chat with you again. I'm sorry it's been so long. If people want to follow you on Instagram, they can do that at graham.copp.96. You can also find you on Facebook. But yeah, we'll have to chat again and do it sooner rather than later.
Sounds good to me. I'll always listen to your podcast every Tuesday and keep up the good work is all I can say.
All right. I appreciate that very much. So we'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Tim Bisantz. Tim, welcome back, and thank you for joining me on this fine Saturday morning. Even though there's no current NBC coverage of Saints to watch, we're still here talking about it.
Thank you very much for having me.
You mentioned you're kind of on the clock before we were on air because you work at a hospital and it's the middle of a pandemic. So I'm sorry, and well done in choosing a profession that was guaranteed to be, I guess, always have work.
Yeah, there was actually a scare there that our department might be cut just because it's not a revenue generating department, but we're heavily involved in the COVID-19 project, and obviously with the pandemic going on, they redeployed us, and now we're heavily involved in it and working many hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about Saints real quick. The season's obviously over. I just got my email from NBC that says, "Hey, guess what? We're not going to charge you any money now because you got to go try this other thing. They're switching their coverage." But yet there are still things that are happening with the team. So before we get into transfers and everything else, let's look back and when you think about this season, whether it's on or off field, when somebody asks you about 2019, 2020, what's the first thing you're going to tell them?
Well, the initial thought was the predictions going into the season. And if you said to me that we would have 52 points and finish 11th, I would have been like, yep, that sounds about right. I'll take that any day. Now, obviously, the intermediary between it, one said game that will define us for a long period of time, many, many years. And then the breakdown with the significant long break, just between it all, and then Danny Ings going off and well exceeding expectations. Combining all that, it's good. I guess I won't say I'm content with it, but overall I find it a competent and a B graded season for us.
All right. Yeah, no, I think there was an easy way to get to 52 points in 11th place, and that would have been fine. We chose not to do that, but I think it makes for a much more exciting kind of end of the season where we didn't kind of just limp over the line. We really gave teams a hard time once the restart came back.
You say exciting, and there's many people out there who have heart palpitations and will have long-term issues from their health following the team this season. The relegation scrap, losing some games where we shouldn't have lost, losing some games where we lost in a significant fashion. It's not the best for the health to be a Saints fan, at least from this year.
No, absolutely not. And I'd just like to point out, I'm still in the car, people who heard the last interview. So if it sounds a little different, I'm waking up, but it's still the car. The form that we had once the restart kicked in was phenomenal. I don't think anybody predicted that, and nobody's going to complain about it either. But in order to keep that going, what areas of the team do you think need to be addressed between now and the start of next season for us to have the best chance of keeping that going?
Ralph talked about initially at the beginning of the season that he likes to have a smaller team. With the pace and the actually compact season coming up, just want to ensure that the depth when it comes to the drop-off isn't there. I know he didn't like to use subs, and for the pandemic, after the pandemic break, we were able to use just a significantly 14, 15 player team, and it worked out well for us. But ensuring that longevity so that, if something does go wrong, if Danny Ings goes down, for example, what's going to happen from that? So making sure that we're solidified all across the board, making sure our depth isn't an issue, and overall, just keeping the same morale factor. I think that Ralph will give the opportunity to build off of that, because with a new 4-year contract, we're going to be buying in significantly, and overall, I think he'll be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. When you look back at this season and you think about the season that Danny Ings had and the goals that he scored, he obviously kind of steals the headlines, not just for us, but I think even across the Premier League. I think he was probably talked about more than any other player in Saints team this season. Second, maybe only to the 9-0. And maybe the fact that the board kept Ralph, but that is what it is. We can't control that narrative. But other players in the team that maybe surprised you or you think deserve recognition for their performances this season?
The first, obviously, person to go to is Ward-Prowse, playing every game, every minute, most distance covered out of any player in the entire Premier League. That's been wonderful. And then there's been some real success stories that have come about. Stuart Armstrong has solidified himself as a very consistent player who, on the right side of the 4-2-2-2, the Ram, so the right attacking midfielder, has done very well. I think Bednarik continues to impress. He's very young still, and he, if we don't lock him up, he's going to get picked off next summer, is my prediction. Just before that, Bertrand's been successful and steady with everything he's done. And, well, just a little bit of everybody else. Very happy with how things have gone. And that's kind of about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a team effort this season, but a couple of people who have really, I think, stood out, and you realize we may be hurting a little bit without Danny Ings' goals, but the other guys in the team have definitely progressed to the point to allow him to be put in those situations and the positions to score those goals. And then you look at kind of Che Adams coming on late. I think we're set up well going forward, and I'm very excited about next season. I just hope it happens without a gigantic break in the middle. And I guess anything else that in relation to the team that you think deserves kind of talking about, whether it's a match or a player or the board or whatever it is, anything else that you think deserves mentioning here before we wrap it up?
So a couple of games that kind of stuck out to me. The first one is the 2-1 replay of the 9-0. That to me shows perseverance, and they came back and they just went strong with it. It was absolutely wonderful to see that and how they came back from it all. To me, that is the one game that sticks out more than anything else. Secondly was the Chelsea game during the Christmas holiday period. They won 2-0 with Obafemi and Che Adams starting. So seeing that there's the potential for progress going into the future, we had a very rotated offense at that point, and I found that to be wonderful that they were able to accomplish and beat Chelsea. Probably maybe they overlooked the game a little bit, but we didn't, and even with our rotation, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
And geez, I guess I got to say we were pretty lucky going into after the break to start with Norwich away. Regardless, just playing Norwich 3-0 is a great way to kind of get back into the swing of things, playing against a championship caliber level team to kind of get ourselves in our foot going for after the break. Yeah. So those are just a few of those games that stuck out to me. I'm sure there's others that I can't think off the top of my head, but and obviously the Man City game, the win was fantastic as well.
Yeah.
So just with there's probably a little bit of recency bias, although that Chelsea game was not recent.
Right. No, but that game stands out, and really, I mean, the way we played over the latter part of the season, it definitely, there's no reason we shouldn't have enjoyed it. It was much more enjoyable, than some of the ways that the matches went earlier. So I don't blame you there. But yeah, I think we're kind of set up well, and definitely, I think still need to strengthen, like you said, add some depth to the team and put ourselves in a position to continue this. But with Ralph having a new contract, I think Ward-Prowse, I think, has a new contract. I could be wrong about that, or an extension, but it seems like we're heading in the right direction, which is nice to say because we haven't been able to say that really over the past couple of months, I guess, or years even. That we're definitely heading in the right direction.
It's pretty nice to feel about that. We're looking ahead and everything's looking positive.
Yes.
There's a few teams out there that are not in that way, and the one that sticks out in my head is Crystal Palace. It's the oldest team in the league. How many points did they get after the break? Was it 1 or 2 or something like that? Just a few. There's just a few things that makes me feel very optimistic going into the season.
Yeah, I think nobody spent longer in lockdown than Wilfried Zaha, because I think he was in there since last time we played him. But anyway, that's a bad joke. I should probably cut that out, but I won't. I'll make the people listen to that. But anyway, Tim, it's been a pleasure to chat with you again, and I appreciate it. And I hope you're doing well and stay safe given everything that's happening pandemic wise and everything else. And I want to say thanks again for joining the show.
Thank you very much.
And that does it for this week's episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. Special thanks goes out to this week's guests, Luke Millard, Justin Woodward, Graham Copp, and Tim Bisantz. All of their links to their social media profiles and things are in the show notes if you are interested in giving them a follow, which I think you should. And I really just appreciate their support of the show and their willingness to come on and talk. And, especially to Graham and Tim for putting up with me sounding like I just woke up and was talking to them from inside of a car, because that's exactly what happened. We'll have more of the same next week, plus hopefully a big announcement. So I'm looking forward to that, unless it falls through between now and then I won't have an announcement. But now I've said this, so that will make it super weird. So I guess tune in and find out. The show would not be possible without the partners of the show, the Southampton page on Twitter and Instagram, at Southampton page on Twitter and at Southampton page 1 on Instagram. We'll keep you up to date with all your Southampton FC news and needs. If you like the logo for the show, then you should head on over to the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Matt Beeling does the logo for the show. He also does a bunch of other really cool stuff on his Instagram page. The new kits are out. There will be stuff coming up about that, I am sure. So head on over there at We Are Southampton on Instagram. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Boddington Bear. If you are enjoying the show, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or sharing the show with a friend. If you'd like to be involved with the show and didn't get a chance to talk to me for this, you can submit your thoughts on the season. There's a link in the show notes, and it will be included in this week's newsletter, which you can sign up for. You're going to southamptondelivery.com/newsletter. That's it for now. I want to thank you so much for listening once again. Appreciate the support. And until next time, remember that together, we march on. Also, I'm getting out of the car now.